Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm just keeping an eye on the folks that are signing in as we speak, so we'll just wait a moment for everybody to join. If you came here for the Certemy Fireside Chat with Jason Skinner, where we're going to learn all about how a board with a very limited budget and a staff of one, Jason, you're looking at him, was able to completely automate their certification process for both applications and renewals and do it on a very small budget. So that's today's topic. We are just waiting for folks to show up here. Looks like we've got quite a few. Let's give it one more minute and then we'll get started, Jason.
Okay.
All right, I think we will get started, Jason. Let me just bring up my questions and off we go. All right, well, again, thank you everybody for joining us. This is a Certemy Fireside Chat for the professional certification community, and we do these once a month. We had our first one last month. This month, we're very pleased to have Jason Skinner with us, board administrator for the Arkansas Board, Certification Board. And our theme today is how a board with a very limited budget and a very limited staff was still able to automate their process and go completely paperless, which was a major goal for Jason. So with that, I'm going to start the questions. So Jason, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today. I wonder if we could start. Thank you. I wonder if we could start. Can you just introduce yourselves to our audience?
Yeah, hi, my name is Jason Skinner. I'm the administrator for the Arkansas Substance Abuse Certification Board in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Thank you, Jason. And tell us, how long have you been at the Arkansas Addiction Board?
This will be going on my 8th year right now.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit more about the board, renewal cycles, how many credentials you offer, how many professionals you process, and so on?
Yeah, we renew biannually between two groups of certifications that we hold. The credentials that we offer are 4 credentials: the Advanced Alcohol and Drug Counselor Certification, the Alcohol and Drug Counselor Certification, the Clinical Supervisor Certification, and the Peer Recovery Certification.
Great. And a 2-year renewal cycle?
Yeah, it's 2 years. We split it up between 2 different groups of credentials at that time. So 1 year we have one group of credentials, the next year we have another group, which is normally about 832 individuals for 1 year, which is kind of our smaller recertification time. And then about 1,013, maybe a little bit more than that during the other recertification time period.
All right, and I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it sets up the premise for today's call.
Sure.
So how many staff do you have administering your program right now?
Right. Just myself. I have a board of 15 that meets every second Thursday and Friday of the month. Usually they would come in and review all of the submissions that our counselors would be sending in, or new counselors in training, which would take up a majority of the time. Now, whenever they come in, it's really just to kind of discuss new business and the direction that we're going for the next couple of months. So actually kind of allowed the board to become more efficient as well in terms of how we are structuring our business for the future.
Great. Well, let's talk about, obviously you've gone through a transition, automated processes, but let's talk about what life was like before you did that. And then let's talk about how it changed. And we're also going to talk about some of the hints and tips that you can provide other boards on making the transition. So just to get that conversation started, let's talk about how you processed applications and renewals before you automated.
Okay.
Describe that process in terms of how much paper was involved and how people were communicating with you, how long, turnaround times on submissions and so on and so forth.
Yeah, as far as the paper that was involved, I had quite a bit. I had 4 file cabinets and 1 large file drawer, all of which were stacked full. And I was quickly running out of space, and I needed a better business plan during that time. I was receiving mail with paper documentation and applications that were being submitted at that time, which I don't have to deal with so much anymore. Well, really, I really don't have to deal with any of it anymore, because the software allows me to have everything uploaded from the user at that time. It doesn't even have to be snail mail to me anymore. So definitely more of an official or efficient process at that time.
Well, how much paper were you actually getting prior to implementing your current system? You know,
Yeah,
how much mail would you say you got every day? How many phone calls and emails were you dealing with? Give us a sense of the workload prior to automating.
yeah. I mean, it's always kind of dependent on the time, because I would have new members or candidates that would be submitting counselor in training, which is one of our largest incoming paperwork amounts that we had during that time. So it could be anywhere between 24 to anywhere between 24 and 30 letters a day, with members just looking at trying to get more information or wanting to be registered into the system, into my, well, we'll get to that. But yeah, anyway, being registered into the system, which, then came back to me that I would have to enter all of their information in and turn around after that. Basically, I'd receive the mail. Once, if I was out of the office on business, mail would stack up. It'd keep me extremely busy whenever I returned. But with the current software now, I can take care of all the submissions and reviews while remoting in from off-site locations. So, and that's even with online payments. Now those allow for immediate deposits on our bank account as well, as where before that stuff might be sitting in the office. When you're a person of one, you're not always able to be in the office. You have to be in meetings, or if you're doing a restructure on credentials. So this way allows me to remote in when I need to, just to kind of see what's going on. And the Stripe system for the payments that I'm using offer for immediate, like I said, deposits into the account. So that's no longer sitting on the floor if I'm out of the office at that time too.
So obviously you're doing more than just processing applications and renewals, but with your old, in your old world without software, how much of your day was spent simply opening and processing mailed in submissions, filing paperwork, and answering phone calls and emails?
No, it was my whole day. Literally, I would. I never had a small amount of work to come to. When you're one, basically, when I took this over 8 years ago, the board was pretty much on its way economically out. They had lost their funding at the time. The person that was running the board was getting ready to retire, and they needed a different approach. And so they came to me and said basically, hey, we need you to take this over. If you're interested, we have a limited budget. So, we can't really promise anything right now, but we'll allow you to make any changes that you need to and move forward from there. And so I spent about 4 years trying to build up the income back to where it needed to be for the board, just to be able to survive. And once we got everything kind of set up in the way that we wanted to, I started to research software companies because my intent was always to go paper-free. There was no reason to have any more file cases that are filled with paper when I could go digital and have all of that online, waiting for the user to be able to access that anytime they wanted to, which is great because I would have a lot of clients that would lose things, lose papers, CEUs that maybe they were going to submit for research, transcripts maybe that they needed to use for another portion of their other job, and now all of that stuff can get stored into a digital wallet, and it's always there for them. Same thing with certificates. All of that will get submitted automatically through our software, and will generate in the digital wallet and be right there for the user if they ever need it. I used to have members that would misplace their certificate. Maybe it wouldn't arrive in the mail, or if it did, it was bent up. If that was even if it arrived at all sometimes. This really just kind of cuts out that middleman, that waiting, really just kind of human error, to be honest with you. It allows the person now, anytime I put any of this in to their file, or if they do themselves, where there's just always easy access.
So you touched on timing there, and tell us a little bit about turnaround times, because there's a workload effort, which sounds like it was pretty intensive between phone calls, emails, and letters to open and process. But in your old world, before you automated, what did turnaround times look like? You know, as a candidate, you know, I submit my application, I mail it into you, it's got to be reviewed. Perhaps I made a mistake, somebody's got to let me know what I didn't do, and I've got to mail the correction back. Describe kind of the turnaround process. We'll certainly talk about how that's changed in the new world, but give us a sense of what those turnaround times looked like in your manual world.
Yeah, the process usually lasted, I could say about a month
Mm.
for the member from the time that they would mail off their forms, registration or for recertification. We always required the board to be able to look at those forms because we needed to make sure that they had some kind of validation to them from our board members to be able to review. And we only meet every second Thursday and Friday of the month. So we always had that limited time period between when something was submitted to the wait time for the board to come back in. Now with the software, it doesn't have to be reviewed for the board because the paper that is being authorized is going directly to the individual that can sign off on it digitally through the software system. So I can get a turnaround time now, what used to take about a month, I can get an individual registered between 1 and 3 days, depending on how quick their background check comes back. So
Basically by automating the process.
yeah.
And so I said, if I summarize your old manual process, a lot of paper, easy to lose paperwork, a lot of time spent on probably answering pretty much the same set of questions by
How
phone.
about just
Email.
editing and revising things that needed to be handled in the paperwork themselves between the application standards manual or a policy and procedure, anything like that. Or even if it was documentation if something changed on the submission form itself. That would have to be something that would be retyped up one word, would have to be put back onto our website, sent back out to the user. Hopefully they had made copies of the old forms that they would be submitting, which would then have to be turned back around and sent back to them just to get a new form back in. So now this allows me to pretty much update everything online. It's immediate, and I don't have to worry about somebody getting the wrong info. So again, just more efficient for me.
Yeah. Now with that old process, do you think you left any money on the table? Do you think there was any revenue that was lost either from folks that started but never completed an application or a renewal?
Yeah, I mean, a month is a long turnaround time for a lot of individuals, especially in this field, because they want to get in and they want to make an immediate change. When they don't get a process through, when it's taking up to around 30 days, I found that members usually get distracted. Maybe they move on to something else. Maybe they feel like they were not handled as quickly as they would have liked. It always seems like that's kind of the case in any kind of business that I've ever been in. People will wait until the last minute to submit something in a lot of different areas, but then they'll turn around and they'll want immediate satisfaction on the return time. So this now alleviates both of those problems. Now I can get a submission from somebody through registration through the software. I can do an immediate approval on that and then turn around and get it right back to them. That way I'm hitting more clients. Definitely that way I'm getting more revenue in, which is obviously beneficial for the board.
Got it. Well, let's now talk about, so obviously at some point you said enough is enough. Tell us how you went about finding a software that could help you achieve your goal of going paperless, and given your budget and given limited staff, kind of manage the software along with all the other things that you need to do. Tell us about the process you went through to find and select the software, and then tell us about some of the experiences you had introducing the software to your membership that had been used to filing everything on, traditionally
Mhm.
on paper?
Yeah, initially, finding a software company was, I mean, there are a lot out there, but it's also really pricey. I was really lucky enough that with our IC and RC main motherboard, that there were a lot of inquiries that were going out from different individuals on that time as we would go into conference or have our monthly telephone meetings about trying to restructure our boards to where we could be paper free. And so IC and RC was truly, they did a decent amount of the research for us,
Mhm.
came back through and allowed us to kind of look into Certemy at the time, which, I mean, to me was like any other software program that I had seen right off the bat. But really, as far as usability, it was the first one that allowed me to make changes to enhance what I wanted to for my own particular board. I wasn't setting something up that was like, hey, here's the software, this is the way that it's set up, and you're going to have to fall in line with the way that this is. Without really, it's really to where I would have to rely on the tech side or the software side to make changes to enhance the software for what I wanted. And the thing that really impressed me with this was the fact that I had the ability to where if I wanted to make a change, I could log in and make those changes myself. And it's really easy. I mean, for me, I'm not a tech expert, but I
Mhm.
am tech savvy. I could go onto GoDaddy and create my own website. And with something like that, I really kind of felt Certemy was kind of the same way. Like I said, it's very user friendly. You can just go in and make changes that you want to. You can kind of look and see if clients during a certain time aren't recognizing or understanding something in a certain way. You start getting a little bit of feedback from them, and you can go in and you can enhance it a little bit more to kind of meet what the client wants. And I like that versus always having to email tech support side and say, I can make this change, or I can't do this, or I can't
Mhm.
do that, or I'd like a little bit more of this. Which in the beginning, it did kind of start like that. Because like with anything, especially a software system that you can change yourself, there were some things that were just going to be very basic in the beginning, like here's the setup, uh, here are the core things that that it seems like you will need for this program, and here's what you can do to enhance that or make changes to it. And not to mention the cost. The cost throughout any of the other software programs I had looked at during that time, and actually even spoke with my wife and some of her business associates because she is a computer coder.
Mm.
I
That's going to be my next
it was
question regarding whether or not you decided to, or if you ever considered building something yourself.
yeah. Which I did. We had actually talked about this. My wife and I had discussed this about setting up something ourselves. The only problem is that I didn't want to rely on my wife whenever she's got her own job and life to start having to be my tech support side for this. That wasn't going to be very quality assurance as far as my side goes, because I can't ever rely on the fact that if I'm going to somebody that I'm related to or that I'm married to make these changes when they have something else going on. I wanted to be able to have a tech side to where if I needed them at any time, that I would get a good response back and I would see the change that I wanted fairly immediately. So for me, the quality on the back end is what I needed. Again, I'm tech savvy, but I'm not tech savvy enough to go in and construct something like this. So I wanted somebody on the back end to be able to assist me whenever I needed it. And again, for the cost, I can't beat that. I can pretty much say that I get tech support pretty much whenever I need it, unless I would never call it like 1 in the morning or 2. But I'm pretty sure that if I did that, I'd get some support on that as well. It's been very user friendly. Again, for one person running a business with a software that allows you to make changes on your own accord, that makes things more efficient, that reduces any of the mail that I'm getting now, you can't beat it. I mean, again, the efficiency, it's been probably about 150% over what I was doing before.
Well, that's good to hear. Now, so folks, I'm sure there's people listening right now that are in your old position. They're processing applications and renewals manually, lots of paper, lots of repetitive phone calls and email. Was it once you decided to deploy this software, help people understand the process you went through to roll the software out, and some of the obstacles that you encountered as you were rolling this software out, and some of the ways that you overcame those obstacles? Because I have to assume that some of your professionals are a little older, perhaps a little less comfortable with new technology than younger folks. Was it an easy transition to make, or did you have to grease the skids a little bit and really help folks make that transition on your membership side?
No, it was not an easy transition. People don't always do really well with change, but I was expecting that. I didn't go into this feeling like it was going to be smooth sailing from the beginning. Like with anything in life, if you get used to a certain process over a certain amount of time, especially with your job, and then someone comes in and says, hey, the way you used to do this is totally changing now. Most people, unless it makes their lives easier and more efficient, they're not going to take to it well until they realize that. And that's really kind of what I had to get to what I would call the boomer user group that was out there.
I think I'm a boomer, but I'm able to do this broadcast, so.
Absolutely, I know, right? We've got a few of the specialists that are out there that maybe I could actually have you be my tech support for my boomers. Talk about that later.
So, so did you put together any kind of assistance to kind of get them over the hump and help them embrace the technology?
Yeah, in the beginning, after phone calls of trying to discuss this over the phone, I actually set up a Word doc and I would go through a registration process or a recertification process. I would paste the picture step by step on what I was doing, and at the top, I would just type in exactly step by step what to do, move to the next picture for the next process that I would be doing under that registration or recertification, and put the next picture, like maybe do some editing. So I've got, like an arrow here, touch, click this first. So I'd have like a 1, 2, 3, and really just kind of a step-by-step kind of holding your hand process like I was over your back showing you exactly what to do, which is kind of odd because on the back end when I asked about feedback on this, it was really kind of 50-50. But again, boomers on one side where I would have to, I guess, argue the case that I felt like the Word doc with the pictures were a lot better. I had some people talking about how video might be a little bit easier for them.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem is that on video, if you're trying to do something, if you ever try to do it step by step, on video, you have to pause, maybe you have to go back. You don't have to do that on a Word doc or something to where you're setting all this out, step by step on what to do. And I felt like for someone that was older, it'd probably be a little bit less frustrating too. I know I don't like watching something and maybe getting distracted or having something going on as I'm typing it up, miss that, then go back. Maybe I go back too far. Anybody that has dealt with something like this on a video versus something that you're just seeing visual that's all laid out for you, the problems that can come by with that. So, yeah.
So it definitely, there was some effort required to get some of your older professionals to make that transition. Presumably now when they're seeing turnaround times in days as opposed to many, many weeks, they've come to embrace the transition. I've got a bunch of other questions, but I'm keeping an eye on the time. I want to be respectful of our audience's time. Mm-hmm. So if you're in the audience and you've got a question for Jason, if you could submit that now through the Zoom interface, I will pass your question on to Jason. So please go ahead and submit any questions that you've got. And so here's a question. You know, at the end of the day, did you get a positive return on investment from this? Did the software pay for itself? Would you do it again, or was it simply a break even and you just replace one expense with another?
Yeah, it was actually it was much more profitable for us because it was pushing me to the point to where I was going again as a when this job started out, it was an administrative job. This job has now rolled into more of an executive director position. Um, and I was starting to feel like I was going to need to hire an administrator, some kind of assistant administrator to answer the phones and to take care of the paperwork that was involved and everything that was coming through. Um, when I looked at the cost between what it would be to hire administrator, uh, 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 have some kind of discussion over what health benefits, everything else would be, versus the cost of software that would play that part for me on an
Mhm.
annual basis, hands down, yes, I would say I probably saved, I'd say about $23,000 a year off of that.
All right, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I
let,
mean, you think about it. Think about the cost of a person coming in and everything else that is involved with that versus having a software that allows me to handle it wherever I'm at. That has everything right there for me. That you know, I again, it's hands down. It's way more cost efficient.
Another question is, somebody wants to know what you did with all the paper. Did you keep those old paper applications? Do you still get paper applications if they do come in? What do you do with them?
Um, so I do every now and then still get a few of my boomer group that will mail in applications even if they know that it's online, and I expect that. And again, you know, as far as a business, you always have to kind of prepare for certain things like that, and I will adjust to that to where I will normally call up that individual, give them an explanation again, just to kind of see maybe where they were confused on the process. Sometimes those are the individuals you have to go step by step over verbally, and they can sometimes get a little bit agitated because they're trying to do it on their own, which then turns into higher frustration. When really, if they just had someone to talk to, they would understand a little bit more. But again, that's like in my probably I'd say 5 people that I had to deal with over the very first recertification that we started on with this program over the phone. Maybe even of a an iPhone video chat where you know,
Mhm.
one of the individuals was holding their phone up to the computer screen, and I was, you know, explaining to them exactly what to do. But definitely, again, still more efficient on the back end because I had a majority of people after I put the step-by-step guides up that knew exactly what to do.
All right, well, we are getting close to the end here. If anybody else has a question, please go ahead and submit it. And also, Jason, if folks wanted to follow up with you directly, maybe they don't want to ask that question in this public forum, would you be willing to take an email question from folks?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what's your email? Everybody, we will be sharing a recording of this, so you'll be able to rewatch it if you choose, and listen to Jason's comments again. What is your email, Jason, if folks want to connect with you directly and learn a little bit more about the process you went through in terms of both selecting and implementing the solution that you ended up choosing?
Yeah, my email, it's all lowercase. It's A as in alpha, R as in Romeo, dot A as in alpha, S as in Sierra, A as in alpha, C as in Charlie, B as in Bravo, at gmail.com.
All right, great. Well, we are at 29 minutes past the hour. Again, I want to be very respectful of people's time. I really appreciate you taking 30 minutes out of your day to listen to Jason. Thank you very much, Jason. Extremely interesting.
My pleasure.
Folks, we're going to do fireside chats like this once a month. We're going to bring in some very interesting people from Seacrest Consulting will be with us next month. Judith Hale from Hale Associates will be joining us. Ellipsis will be joining us. So lots of interesting conversations. So look out for those invitations. And again, thank you for joining. You should expect a recording of this in the next couple of days. And again, I will include Jason's email in the follow-up, and feel free to connect with him directly. And with that, I will say thank you one more time, Jason. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Pleasure.
We'll wrap this up. Have a great day, everybody.
Take care.
Bye.